The NY New York Foreign Press Center wants to welcome everybody today to this briefing. My name is Sean Tembrink, and I'll be moderating this briefing. Before we start, I'll go over a few of the ground rules for the briefing. The ambassador will start with an opening statement, and then will be followed by questions and answers. From the people in person, please state your name and the outlet you're from. And also, thank you for the people that are joining us virtually online. We hope that you will also be able to answer questions today. Please put questions in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll get to them later in the briefing segment. The topic for today's briefing is Advancing U.S. Foreign Policy Priorities in Haiti, Deliverables, and Next Steps. And we welcome the briefer today, Ambassador Wooster, the Chargé d'Affaires for our U.S. mission to Haiti. And with that, Ambassador.
Well, thank you. It's kind of you. Good morning, everyone. And those of you who are beaming in, where are you beaming in? I guess I'm looking at you that way.
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right. So I want to make the statement I'm going to put out at the top of this very brief, because I'm of the understanding that it's going to work better for you. It works better for me. It's a bit more dynamic. So I'll keep my remarks at the top fairly short. So let's cut to those. What's the objective for the United States vis-a-vis Haiti? We need a stable Haiti. Why? It's in the interest of the United States to have a stable Haiti. We don't want to see a triumph of lawlessness over the state. And that's exactly what is at stake here, is a fight for the survival of a sovereign entity, the Haitian state, vis-a-vis lawlessness and gangs. And the gangs, by the way, are a nasty admixture of terrorists, two of whom we have designated, the United States has designated as foreign terrorist organizations. That is Vivre Ensemble, if you're following or have an interest in the gangs, and Grand Griffe. Those two gangs are designated by the United States as foreign terrorist organizations, and they're behaving like it in terms of raping, pillaging, murdering, intimidating, burning. We also have insurgents. Why do I use that term? Because the classic definition of an insurgency, I'm not a walking, talking Oxford English dictionary, but insurgents typically are those who decide to take up arms with a political agenda to go against a state, a legitimate state authority, overtake it to themselves become the state. And that is precisely the agenda we have with several of the gangs. So that's two slices of the gangs. The third and final slice I would introduce you to when I talk about an admixture that constitutes the gangs, a broad swath, a broad term, is criminality. Violent criminality, raping, robbing, murdering, extorting, kidnapping, burning, etc., and so forth. So all of that together constitutes the gang threat to the state of Haiti. The United States is doing what? We are pursuing in response to this. We're pursuing a UN Security Council resolution. It's under silence as I speak now until Friday. This resolution contains two items that we have been pressing for to address the problem I just mentioned to you: stability, survival of a legitimate state, and combating lawlessness, terrorism, violence. The two things that it contains are, one, something called UNSO, UN Support Office Haiti. I'll happily talk about what that all means in a second or in response to your questions. And the other thing that it contains is a much more muscular mandate for the force that we want to amplify. We want to increase that force from its current strength, now known as the MSS, the support mission in Haiti. We want to increase the size of that fivefold. So we want to take a force which is capped currently at 1,000, with a mandate that restricts its freedom of maneuver, and we want to move that up to a force of 5,500, so 5 times order of magnitude shift. We want to pump up their strength. We want the mandate to allow them to pursue much more aggressively, and thus the name Gang Suppression Force. We want to move it from a support mission to a suppression force. So the words matter in this context because that communicates exactly what it is we are trying to achieve. So again, a more robust mandate, more muscular, the freedom of maneuver to go after those gangs, to take the fight to the gangs, if you will. That's what we're pursuing. And the support office, to drop back to that, would provide logistics. This is crucial. There's an old adage, almost like an old saw, that you will have either heard, seen, maybe you remember from one or another class you may have taken, which is when any kind of conflict starts, particularly an armed one, when it starts, The amateurs talk about tactics, but the professionals start to think about logistics. That's what's going on in this case. The logistics have been a hampering factor for the current group that we have, the MSS, armor, vehicles, the ability to move, the ability to get supplies moved forward so they can establish forward operating bases, a long story short, so they can be in the places they need to be to bring stability. Where do they need to be? Places such as the airport, the seaports, key road junctures, power plants, et cetera, and so forth. All the things where a state, any state, needs to assert its authority to establish the fact that it is, in fact, a sovereign enterprise. That's it for me. Over to you.
And with that, we'll have questions from in person first.
Hi, thank you. Argemino Barro from El Confidencial, it's a news site in Spain. How many US citizens are now in Haiti working on the mission or elsewhere? I assume that there are not many on a private situation. Thank you.
Sorry, when you say U.S. citizens, you're not saying, but you said working on the mission. I'm a little confused. Do you mean American diplomats, or do you mean people who are carrying American passports who are not in the U.S. embassy?
Both. People working, American diplomats,
Yeah.
and then out of curiosity, American citizens that maybe are working on different areas, private sector.
Sure. So we have 15% of our non-security personnel who are assigned to the embassy who are present in Haiti. They're working there at the U.S. Embassy, 15%. We have an additional number of folks who are security personnel who are protecting those people. In terms of U.S. citizens, that's always an unreliable figure because the number of U.S. citizens who will sign up with an embassy and say, hi, I'm an American citizen, here's my passport, I want to register with that American embassy, whether it's in Spain, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in Haiti, you name it. It's always unreliable. American diplomats have all experienced the unreliability of that, particularly in a crisis, when suddenly your books tell you there are X, and then suddenly you're getting 10 times X calling you asking, how are you going to help me in this crisis situation? So I think we've got about 30,000 on the books who are American citizens. How many of them are actually in country and did not go back to the States intending to come back when things calm down? I don't know that any of us know what that number is today.
My name is Enrico Wolford from Capital News in Georgetown, Guyana, and my question is very parochial. What is it that countries like Guyana and other countries in the Caribbean can contribute to the effort in Haiti? And I think I'm aware that the United States is interested in getting support and from the Caribbean and Guyana in particular. What type of support? Is it financial or is it material?
If I were a Saturday Night Live comedian, I would just say yes, meaning yes to pretty much everything you have mentioned, but I'm not. I'm a bureaucrat. So to cut back to that life, we want political support. We want support in the form of contributions of either police or military personnel to be part of the gang suppression force. Those are the key things. It's crucial that all the countries, especially those who are in the region, I mean, there is no other crisis that's bigger in the Western Hemisphere as I speak to you today. There is no crisis that's larger than this one in Haiti. And what's at stake, to be, again, crystal clear for the community of nations and those nations, wherever they may be on God's earth, who would make the claim that they believe and they support, which the entire UN is about, international normative standards of civility and behavior. Nothing could be a more stark example than the contest we have right now in Haiti. It's a contest is a misnomer, sorry. Then the effort that we have now in Haiti between a state fighting for its survival. There's an overused term in diplomacy, which is existential. One or another thing is usually often named an existential crisis. Well, this is one of them that actually meets the true doctrinal test of what, or definitional test of what is existential. It is the fight for survival of a state, and for those states and societies who believe that ungovernability and the triumph of lawlessness, that must not be allowed. So that's the kind of support we would seek. It is both political, it is military police, and it is moral.
Hello, Lenka White, RIA Novosti. Thank you so much for this briefing. I was just curious, which states do you find the most cooperative on this topic, in particular on the resolution? And how many more military personnel do you imagine to have? And what countries would they be sent from? Thank you.
Let me take the harder question first, which I'm hoping you're wondering which of your two questions is the harder one. But to me, it's the logistics issue, right? So the United States, we are confident that we will be able to do what is called force generation. It's just a term in the lexicon of diplomacy that means getting enough troops, accruing enough troops for a given mission. So in this case, force generation for Haiti, we are confident, given the conversations that we have had with member states, that we will gain sufficient personnel, whether they're gendarme, police types, or military. And to be clear, the mission is colored overwhelmingly as military in its nature due to the offensive urban combat angle of it, but also happy to take police. So with those countries, we're going to need 5,500 personnel who will come in under that. That's the key thing we'll be chasing down. In the hemisphere, and the hemisphere is very large, extending down nearly to Antarctica, and then all the way up to the Arctic, Canada. So the Western Hemisphere is enormous. We're confident that within those countries, we will attain the 5,500 troop, we'll call them that for ease of not distinguishing with police just at the moment, troop contribution that we require for this. We have had every single country in the hemisphere who has signed on to OAS and CARICOM statements in particular. They've also done it under the aegis of the UN. Now, that's not to say there are not countries who have naturally appropriate questions, such as, if we do this, how long will you need our people? How many of our people will you need? Who will be in charge of it, et cetera, and so forth. Those are valid questions. But just now, because of the time ticking, we are a week at most, arguably less than a week out from when the window is going to close on this resolution. And what is at stake is so crucial that right now we have to have an agreement from member states to agree with, do you support this endeavor? Shall we, as a community of nations, shall we as CARICOM, shall we as the OAS, shall we as the UN, or whatever permutation you wish to be in, shall we join together to meet this threat? Because it's unacceptable to all of us. And today it's Haiti, tomorrow it could be any one of us. So again, we feel firm about those commitments, but again, the hard work, again, in candor, the hard work will be as we sit down and say, okay, you said you wanted to offer 700. Can you make it 1,000? But we'll come, right now is not the day to do that. The day to be thinking about that has already passed, and we have been doing that. But just now, the key thing is to get that resolution adopted in the Security Council.
Hi, my name is Kyoto Tanaka. I'm from the Japanese newspaper called Asahi Shimbun. I cover the United Nations, basically. And yeah, I'm very curious about interested in the new proposed gang operation force. And I got two questions. Would you say the devastation of the Haiti has been an issue for a while? And would you say that it's something that the U.S. has increased its interest under the new administration? Like, would you care to explain why you are increasing your interest in the Haitian issues so far as to propose the new force under the UN? And the second question would be what's the difference apart from the size of it compared to the current force? Apart from the size, is there any other differences that you can maybe share?
Yeah, certainly. Okay, and help me if I wander off on your two questions, okay? Why the interest now? Well, the interest now is because of what I've just outlined, which is we have a state who's very close to our shores, 600 miles from Florida. And if the lights go out, figuratively speaking, if the lights go out in Haiti, and the state loses that fight, and they are no longer who is running Haiti, legitimate authorities, and we turn to Haiti being run by lawlessness, by gangs, all the stuff I outlined before, foreign terrorist organizations. That is a threat which we know, the United States, it won't be us alone, but it certainly will be us as well. We're going to have mass waves of illegal immigration to the shores of the United States. There will, of course, be tragedies on the seas because there always are in these circumstances. We will have increased narcotics trafficking pathways. We'll have increased human trafficking. We'll have increased arms trafficking. A long story short, it's not going to be good, right? You can put it on the bad side of the ledger, and we know that if it gets worse, it affects our interests. So, and also those of our allies, i.e. the other countries in the region. So that's the paramount objective there in response to your one question. In response to your other question about how else is this different other than the math. So the key thing I would urge you to focus on is the authorities. The authorities that would be granted under a Chapter 7 mandate. The MSS is a Chapter 7 mandate, but this Chapter 7 mandate would enjoin this force, the gang suppression force, to take the fight, in other words, to take the offense, to go after the gangs, to pursue them with lethal force. So whereas the current mandate that we've had, or we still have, I guess, until October 2, that is a mandate where the MSS is in support, think of a train, the locomotive, if you will, which is the Haitian National Police, and the caboose, if you will, which is the MSS. So they're supporting, if those guys go here, they go there. If they go there, you get the idea. The gang suppression force mandate would allow them to have freedom of maneuver, all the time supporting the Haitian National Police and the Haitian authorities' efforts with the gangs, but not requiring that wherever the Haitian police go on a given day, they go. So, for instance, the Haitian police can go this way into this part of Port-au-Prince or somewhere else in Haiti, and the gang suppression force still supporting them can go to another place, another neighborhood in the city or another part of the country, or all the above. And it's a much more vigorous mandate.
But that makes them a law unto themselves.
Why?
Sorry, one second, sir.
Wouldn't that, in effect, make them a law unto themselves without support, without cover of the state apparatus? Or is it the other way around? The state apparatus is giving them that cover?
So they would be under the direction of something called a standing group of partners, or if you prefer, in the government we like acronyms, SGP, right? Standing group of partners. They would be under the direction of the standing group of partners. Who are the standing group of partners? They're the people who have made contributions already and are. Others are welcome to join, provided they do that. But the standing group of partners are, to put it in common parlance, those with skin in the game. That gives them, again, you have much more direct, a direct line of command, if you will. But instead of having a situation where you could put at risk the notion that you're going to be what we sometimes call the 10,000-mile screwdriver, which is you have New York reaching into all the details, right? Unlike that situation, you have a mandate given to an organization. So the Security Council has spoken. The community of nations has spoken at the highest level that we recognize internationally and by international law, the UN Security Council. So they will have, past tense, already spoken. They will still, of course, provide reports. We have to work out whether that will be quarterly or what exactly it will be. They will still brief and provide reports to the UN Security Council because, of course, who gave them their legitimacy? But operationally, in terms of more day-to-day activities, again, they will be reporting up through a civilian. So you'll have a special representative, SR, not SRSG, SR, special representative. That will be a civilian. They will provide oversight, political direction, and so forth.
And with that, we're going to go to a virtual question, then we'll come back to the room. Pearl, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Thank you so much for that and for your availability.
1 second, Pearl. Can you turn the volume up in the room?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your availability, Ambassador. As Kenya shoulders real present costs, right? Just the fact that Kenya's present has real presence costs in leading the security mission in Haiti. What tangible outcomes can Haitians, Kenyans, as well as Americans expect that demonstrate that this effort advances US priorities while also delivering shared benefits? And I really appreciate you are working in a really challenging, complex environment. So I appreciate your response to this, because Kenyans back home are also maybe asking themselves, is it worth it for them to be there? You know, I'm talking about Kenyan population. So how do these stakeholders feel it's good and is aligned with US priorities? Thanks so much, Ambassador.
Pearl, in terms of the contribution the Kenyan forces are making, I neglected to mention, as I should have at the outset, really the extraordinary contribution that Kenya has provided. Think alone of the fact of the actual deployment of human treasure, by which I mean the lives and the souls of people who Kenya sent to Haiti, which I think all of us know is a bit far from Kenya's shores. But they did this. They did this out of their commitment to meeting a call that was put out. They did this to uphold a normative standard. We are nothing but grateful to Kenya for the extraordinary service they have provided in Haiti. And it's also important to note that Kenya provided this when, regrettably, many nations in the region did not. Not all, because there are other nations in with the Kenyans. The Kenyans comprise about 75% of the 1,000 who are in Haiti today as part of the MSS. The remainder come from the region. So for them, that is a plus and a benefit, and also something for which we hold in high regard, which is the willingness to walk one's talk about, again, international normative standards and being part of a community of nations. So the Kenyans, Pearl, I would say to you, have distinguished themselves above many others by the act of the deployment alone. And it has been imperative that the international community's presence with the Kenyan arm patch is represented. It means an enormous amount to Haitians in particular to see that there is an international community who cares. And that is emblematic through presence, boots, if you will, on the ground.
Thank you very much.
In-person questions again?
Could you please give us a flavor of how is the national situation? Of course, you have described the lawlessness and all the horrifying. But what about the political parties? Is there a prime minister? Is there a party that is a little bit more active that the United States support? How is a little bit the situation in terms of politics in Haiti? Thank you.
So there is a prime minister who is in charge of the government, and there is a chairman of the Transitional Presidential Council, who is also the chairman is also known as the president. He is the head of state. So again, the prime minister, a model you will be used to in many countries, who is the head of government, and the chairman of the Transitional Presidential Council, who is the head of state. He's representing Haiti here at the UN General Assembly. The Haitians need to come to an election and elect a president. There have been a number of obstacles on this path. The obstacles have ranged the spectrum from security crisis or crises, a refusal on the part of some members of the Transitional Presidential Council to act, to move, and a nettlesome matter of the Constitution, the Haitian Constitution. The question is, do Haitians have to fix the Haitian Constitution before they can have a legitimate election? Or do they have to fix the Constitution to have a distinction, credible elected head of state, or can it wait? It's an important question. I trust it would be important in any country. The matter of one's constitution, the connective tissue holding your sovereign enterprise together. So it's a valid question. The trick is security and this constitutional question and the matter of elections must not be allowed to be a red herring for taking action. In other words, you can't stay in those jobs for life. They're not jobs for life. There's a history there, and it's not good, and it has contributed enormously to instability in the Haitian state. There needs to be a democratically elected head of state. That must happen. The question on whether or not how the particulars of the Constitution, that's a matter for Haiti to decide.
Thank you very much again. Do you know how expensive it's gonna be the new gang operation force? Do you know how expensive the current force is? 'Cause I'm interested in this because the U.S. is obviously very cautious about expenditure that UN is making in terms of peacekeeping operations and stuff. So yeah, thank you very much.
So I want to distinguish immediately that the gang suppression force and also the MSS that we have right now, neither one of these are peacekeeping operations. So neither one of them fall under PKO terms. I know they look like a duck and sort of walk like a duck, but they're not a duck, right? So they're not a peacekeeping operation. In terms of the costs, the United States has for too long borne the brunt of the costs financially and logistically for the MSS, for this force. That is why we want to move, and I'll come to the math in a minute, that's why we want to move to a gang suppression force with the mandate that I've spoken about, much larger size, but with the payment for them coming out of assessed contributions, not only from the wallet of the United States government. The cost, we have paid over $1 billion at this point, with a B, billion. The actual cost for what's known as the Life Support Activity Contract. This is a contract that provides logistics, meals, a place to sleep, medical, maintenance of vehicles, and so forth. This contract, we have paid $835 million. Lauren, is that the correct math to date? Approximately. Okay. And when you look at the subsidiary costs and support costs that we've paid around it, we're over $1 billion already. I want to be clear that my saying the United States, having borne the brunt of it for too long, doesn't mean that we would not pay anything, but rather the crisis that I've spoken about and that we're all meeting here in this room about are ones that are not a U.S. crisis or a U.S. Haiti crisis. They are broader, which is the rationale behind moving us from the United States carrying this all to saying, hey, let's spread this out because all of you have a shared interest in this, and let us move to assessed contributions to pay for the UN Support Office. Now, mind you, if you're into details and particulars, such as allowances of troops and personnel, that will still come out of what's called the voluntary fund, or the sometimes called, what's the trust fund, the UN trust fund, right? Where nations contribute to that as well, or can contribute to that, and we encourage everyone to do so. But that's where personnel costs and expenses come out of that, not the salary. That comes from your home government. If you're a Japanese soldier, you're still getting your paycheck from the government of Japan, from the Japan Defense Forces. But you would get the allowances for being deployed in this force through this other mechanism.
We're going to go back to a virtual follow-up question from Pearl.
Okay.
Pearl, can you please?
Yes, Ambassador Wooster, I really do appreciate you giving me a second opportunity just to ask I guess what I'm trying to do is hopefully give you an opportunity. Sometimes there's disinformation out there. Sometimes there's disinformation out there. And sometimes reporting is not accurate about U.S. role and the engagement efforts that you're making. So my question to you today now is, are there any misconceptions in the U.S. role, in the engagements that you are making, that you would like an opportunity to clarify or to correct to the global audience out there? Is there any disinformation or concerns on America's role? I just wanted to tackle that aspect. Or if you're not seeing any, you're not seeing any. But is there any reporting or discourse, public discourse out there that you think, no, people are getting this aspect not quite right? Would you like to correct anything out there?
Well, the most striking one, Pearl, the most striking one is the question about, and a lot of misinformation. So some of this, it's hard to distinguish whether it's deliberate or it's just confusion or it's probably both. But that is that the U.S. won't pay, isn't going to pay. We, and I announced this yesterday in our ECOSOC meeting at, the Canadian-hosted Haiti event, which was under the ECOSOC umbrella. The United States does intend to pay its share of assessed contributions for the UN Support Office for Haiti for the reasons that I've outlined before. Additionally, not solely for that, there should be no question about the U.S. commitment to pay its share of expenses. Let me give you a couple examples. Mind you, we've got two of these that are under what in the U.S. system we call congressional notifications. It's a 15-day hold period before we normally would announce these. But this is funding for assessed contributions for the UNIFIL mission and funding for the assessed contributions about MONUSCO. Both of those we will pay for. And again, we intend to pay, we will pay for our share of assessed contributions for a UN support office for Haiti. Additionally, we are paying our share through these examples and others that I haven't cited to ensure and to enable international peace and security. So that to me, I'm not sure if you had something else in mind, but that to me is the most glaring example of misinformation, misunderstanding.
No, I appreciate that very much. Very much. Thank you.
Any other in-person questions? One second.
Thank you so much, His Excellency. My name is Malik Khan from Africa Magazine. I was just thinking about other kind of leverage that can be used when it comes to tackling this crisis in Haiti, besides the military or operational situations. I was checking if there's like a cultural leverage that we can use diplomatically to bring the Haitian and all these shareholders on the table so that, we can stabilize the country. Are you working in other fields like educational or cultural platform to do so?
So I think it won't surprise anyone that no one has contributed more to, in terms of assistance to Haiti, not only in the moment, but through the decades than the United States, and by probably several orders of magnitude rather than an order of magnitude. At the moment, the crucial thing to enable right now is security. Right now, we've got to keep everybody's eye on that ball. It is security. I liken it, I'm not a doctor, obviously, but I liken it to an emergency room that gets a patient who comes in who's been very severely injured. And while they've got contusions, maybe a concussion, and they've got a broken leg and lacerations and so forth and so on, you've got to stop the bleeding immediately. You can't let them bleed out. And they've got to be able to breathe. After which you can attend to their broken nose, their cut ear, their broken ankle, et cetera, and so forth. But if you don't keep them alive first, you can't it's metaphysically impossible to attend to the other aspects of the problem if you have not achieved security. So that is our objective. That's why getting the UN Security Council resolution passed now is so crucial, and that's why the focus in that resolution is stability and security.
And with that, Ambassador, that concludes the briefing. Thank you very much. And on behalf of the New York Foreign Press Center, we want to thank everybody for their in-person attendance and also for everybody joining us virtually. We look forward to welcoming you to future programming.
Thank you all.